Hey, what up, say? One time for the hometown, I got love for it, that's real. Two times for the haters, man, cause I notice how this shit feel. Three times for my family, dog, cause this shit done paid our bills. And I get 4 times my net worth from a year ago with no deals.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Matt Cutrer Report. This is your host, Matt Cutrer. Today we have a really special guest, y'all. Our guest hails from across the world, from the Middle East. I've been wanting to have this guest on, or I've been wanting to interview this person for a long time because this is an individual who has a very unique story. Comes from Iraq, moved to Texas, completely different culture, very fascinating, very intelligent individual. I want to welcome Dina Ghanima to the Matt Cutrer podcast. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Have a seat.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get into this. Tell us, okay, so thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
This is going to be really cool, I think. So today our topic, guys, is going to be cross-cultural living, essentially. And Dina's going to talk about her life, both growing up in Iraq, her life as she came to the United States and making that transition, what that was about, how it affected her, her family, the things she's dealt with. But before we begin, we got to do our 20-second elevator pitch, okay? So, excuse me, 30 seconds. I shorted you. All right, so
Give me my 10
I'm
seconds back.
Yeah, I'm gonna put 30 seconds on the clock, and you're gonna tell us your elevator pitch, and you know what the elevator pitch is,
Sure
right?
thing.
Okay, here we go. Ready, set, go. You're on.
Okay, my name is Dina Ghanima.
Get a little closer to the mic.
Yeah,
sir.
my
Ready,
name is
go.
Dina Ghanima. I was born in Iraq. I came to the U.S. in 2010. I got my citizenship in about 2016. I'm also a director of account management, and I believe in freedom, but within limits.
Okay, wonderful. Sounds good. Awesome. All right. So before we go any further, we got to do an ad real quick. So our premium sponsor is Stephen Holscher Farm and Ranch Real Estate. So the Matt Cutrer Report is brought to you by our premium sponsor, Stephen Holscher Farm and Ranch Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell, Holscher Real Estate Group has you covered. With a dedicated team and a passion for Texas land, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Visit www.holscherranchgroup.com or call 325-899-1403 to get started. Holscher Ranch Group, making land ownership dreams come true 1 acre at a time. That's my boy, Stephen Holscher. You know Stephen.
Yes,
He's
I
a
do.
good dude.
Great guy.
Yeah. All righty, let's get into this. So tell me first, I want to know first, what it was like for you growing up in Iraq. Let's start with just a brief overview of your childhood. And as you're talking about your childhood, tell the audience a little bit about your family and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I come from family of both of my parents are Iraqi originally. They're both now U.S. citizens.
Get a little bit closer and a little louder. Yeah.
Absolutely. They both they've raised us in a very unique way that we have freedom, but our freedom have limits when it starts to impact other people's behaviors or other people's outcomes. I come from actually a Catholic family, born and raised. My dad's uncle used to be a cardinal in the Vatican.
Really?
From the Babylonian area.
A cardinal?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
There is a huge population in Iraq that is actually Christian. We do have mostly Catholics and Orthodox, so Eastern Church and Western Church, in a way.
You said, sorry to interrupt you, but you said there is a percentage of Iraq that's Christian,
Correct.
essentially. And what percentage is that?
Absolutely. So Iraq is normally 70% Muslim, 30% others. The others have 20% that are Christians, 10% are Jews, Subbis, and non-believers. Yeah,
I got you. So 70% of the country is Muslim.
correct.
But then 30% is broken up into 20% being Christian and 10% other. Okay, but wow.
We
So a lot of
celebrated-
people don't know that
Yeah.
10% of the country is Christian. A lot of people don't know that. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, growing up, we celebrated Christian holidays. We had Easter and we have Christmas. Funny enough, we have Christmas for 3 days and Easter for 3 days. We don't do it just for 1 day.
You have Christmas for 3 days.
Yeah, Christmas
and
is
Easter.
3 days.
Interesting.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. You take a holiday from school, from work, from whatever you work if you're a Christian.
Sick.
And you
Okay.
just like do your events, which like you go to church and you do your visits to your family and friends and celebrate,
Yeah,
open
yeah,
your
yeah.
gift and Santa and all of the like you have the parades, everything. We do have a
Nice.
lot of churches. The Middle East is known for having one of most of the oldest churches in the world because of the area and where
I
Jesus
bet. I
came
could
from.
imagine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was interesting growing up because talking about like coming from a country that is 70% Muslims, we pretty much coexisted pretty normally in the
Yeah.
past. There was not a lot of conflicts. Some of my best friends are Muslims. Some of my parents' best friends are Muslims. We go to school, we go to colleges together. Schools are mostly like you get to first to sixth grade is kind of mixed up schools, and then you get to seventh grade through 12th grade is kind of separated, where you have boys alone and girls alone. From a school
Really?
perspective.
Wait,
Yeah.
so you're saying so in elementary school, it's sort of like a traditional elementary school here. It's
Yeah.
like boys and girls mixed, but then when you get to junior high and high school, it's split. Boys and then girls go to different
Correct.
schools. Why is that, do you think?
I think it's more of a cultural thing because of Islam being the main
Yeah.
religion, and it's an Islamic country.
Now, so what I want to know is, did the Islam or the Muslim people that you knew that you went to school with, the women, did they wear dark clothing and had to be fully covered?
No. They wore just like normal clothes that we
Okay.
all wear.
So
some of
wh-
them wear hijab. It's a personal preference, and some of them
Okay.
did not.
So it really depends on the family.
Yeah,
and,
it
and-
depends
okay.
on the girl, the belief, the family,
Gotcha.
all of it, all
Interesting.
together.
Yeah.
But there wasn't like necessarily at the time I went to school. There wasn't mostly like a forced culture where you have to wear hijab. You have.
But
to
there
do
used
this.
to be.
Not used to be. Now it is. What I hear is now it is more. Funny enough, if you go back Iraq in the 70s and you look at pictures, everybody's in bikinis and
Yeah, wow.
everything. Like they are at the beach doing stuff.
Is that right?
Cars, yes. But as the culture kind of progressed, people digressed in a way, and especially after the war, with all of the, the terrorism and all of everything that came out, and some of the extremist groups that kind of
Yeah.
took over.
Yeah.
You see a different culture.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. Like you said, in the 70s, maybe even early 80s, bikinis, it was kind of more open-minded. And then, like you said, it digressed as certain political groups came into power.
Absolutely.
So we're talking here about, we're about the same age. You're a little younger than I am. And we're talking essentially here about right after 9/11, or that time period, before and pre and post 9/11. And so we're essentially talking about Iraqi freedom being the first war that happened the juxtaposition is really interesting here, because I was in high school in the United States, and you were in high school in Iraq.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be very interesting, I think, to tell both of our perspectives
Absolutely.
of pre and post 9/11, because that's a big signify. That's a deal that you could essentially say the world changed after 9/11. And so pre and post 9/11 is a really good way, I think, to characterize the world, just because it was vastly different, before it happened than after. So anyway, so go ahead and continue. Tell us a little bit about your personal family and stuff.
Yeah, I shared with you, like I come from, my mom is Christian Orthodox. My dad is Christian Catholic. They kind of met each other, like my mom's family had a funeral. My dad's family went in to give condolences to her family, and my dad saw her and said, okay, I want to marry this girl. They kind of talked. They had a kind of an arranged marriage in a way.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
Like in a way that there wasn't like a pre-existing relationship or anything. He saw her, he liked her. He told his family, I want to marry her. So afterwards, they went to my aunt's house, because my grandparents from my dad's side, my mom's side, and my aunt all lived almost on the same street.
Wow.
Just coincidentally.
Is that common?
Not really.
Okay.
It was just happened to be the families live in the same
Yeah.
street. So when at first it was my mom's family who had the death in their family. So my mom, my grandma, my aunt, and my dad and his family, like all of them, they went into show. It's a very normal thing. We stick together a lot. Like a funeral, just like I said, Christmas is 3 days, Easter is 3 days, funerals are 3 days as well.
Oh, no joke?
yeah.
3 days.
Yep.
Funerals.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And one of the things that was very interesting, speaking of funerals, is we don't wait the same amount of time you guys wait here.
What do you mean by that?
Like, so I see here people die, and then a week or two later, then you do the funeral sometimes.
Oh, y'all do it immediately.
We do it within 48 hours, mostly.
Is that right?
Yeah, because
So
there is,
do y'all- I
unless
wonder-
there is a reason. Like, for instance, if it's a murder and there's still an
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
investigation and they are, like,
I wonder if y'all even embalm. Do you know if y'all embalm people?
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure
do.
you do.
Yeah, we
okay.
do.
Okay, yeah.
we do.
I wonder why that is, though. That here
I
it can
think
be up
here-
to a week, like you said,
I
or
think
longer.
here it's
sometimes.
more becoming of a trade of people than it's like
What do you
honoring
mean?
the. So Here you have to go find a spot for the deceased. You have to sell, get
Oh,
a
you're
like.
saying it's more like
Yeah,
a
it's more a
business deal.
financial. Yeah, it's a financial outcome.
What is
For
it
us,
like there?
it's
Yeah.
not. It's not that expensive. There is no reason for it. In
That's
my own opinion, there is
cool.
not a reason to be this expensive. Plus, as a community, everybody pitch in and help you if there is a need.
That's very neat.
Like dying shouldn't be like the family of the deceased is already going through a lot.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a burden or
That's
how am I gonna
right.
bury my deceased now, and like
Yeah.
you honor them by like what you have for them in a way.
It's so crazy that it's American. Death is even Americanized. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you still gotta figure, like you said, it's like almost like a wedding. You got to find out who's catering the funeral. You got to figure out what box they're gonna be. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's very
And it kind of takes some of
interesting.
the intimacy out of it because
It
I mean,
does.
dying is a very intimate thing. You know what? This is a very tough subject, but death is. I've been around for someone's birth, my son's birth, and I've been around for someone's death. I've witnessed my grandmother's death, and they're equally as intimate, and I
They
think
are.
they're equally as beautiful in a way. And I want to talk more about that later. But what's fascinating to me is you growing up on the other side of the world. It's very neat to think about the things you probably experienced and went through and the things that I did and my friends over on this side of the world. But we're so similar in so many ways. But when that was happening, there were a lot of things that took place that went down after 9/11 that really convoluted the whole situation.
Absolutely.
And people, I want to kind of get into that here in a second. But first, tell me, so let's talk about that a little bit. Things are starting to heat up. It's the regime of Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
And we've already been through one war back with George Bush Sr.,
Correct.
the Gulf War. And so essentially the reason for us doing this is 9/11, but on the pretense that they're weapons of mass destruction and so justifying our cause to enter the country and invade the country in the first place. So what was high school like for you just as 9/11 happened and things were heating up and we were starting to invade, Iraq? What was that like?
So I'm going to take you a little bit back before we get into it really quick.
Okay.
So growing up, I think the perception overall is our lives are completely different. We didn't watch the same shows, whatever. You coming from a culture, we watch the same exact shows. I grew up on watching
Wow.
Charmed, Buffy, The Vampire Slayer.
Yeah,
We
okay.
had all of the shows and everything. The war in 2003 was one of my first ones. I was born in 87. I did not see the 1990, 91
Right. We
war
were too
because
young. Yeah.
well, I was in India at the time. We did
Oh,
not. So
wow.
my dad, my brother, and my mother, we were all in India.
Okay.
And he was studying. He was doing one of his masters.
Your dad?
My dad,
Yes.
yeah, in India. And then we got the call that we all have to come back because the war happened. So by the time we got back and everything, there wasn't really a war, but this was the aftermath after the war. I was too young to remember, but I did live through the embargo.
Okay.
After the 1991 war.
Yeah.
Things were, I think the embargo was very interesting because what it kind of took away power, took away water, took away the necessities of the country in a way.
Wow.
But somehow we were able to manage and able to kind of progress.
Yeah.
Life became a little bit more interesting in a way. We still were able to make the best out of it, I'll say, as a country. What's really, you will find that even going through some of the statistics and some of the stuff, we have a great education system.
That's true.
Education is mandatory in Iraq up to 12th grade and going to college.
Really? Talk about education a little bit.
Yeah, so even with all of the bad things that any dictator came with or Saddam came with in a way, there's also some good outcomes.
That's
in it.
true.
There's always a pros and cons and
That's
everything.
exactly right.
So one of the things he did is he made education mandatory. So
Okay.
everybody has to graduate high school.
Wow.
He believed that this was the way that we can go. We have some of the greatest colleges and schools. We talked about schools being separated in high school a little bit,
Yeah.
boys and girls, except for you have Baghdad International School. It's kind of mixed. And Baghdad International School, to get into it, it's very complex in a way. You have to have the highest grades.
Okay.
You have to do an exam you have to do an interview, then an exam to be accepted and pass with a
Wow.
85 to 90% rate.
Oh, wow.
And answering really complex college level questions.
Okay.
When you are when you're just barely to 7th grade, going into 7th
Really?
grade. Yes.
Goodness. Wow. Okay.
But when you get to Baghdad International School, you're kind of known to, you're going to graduate being a doctor and an engineer, and you're going to do something great, or a scientist, and everybody that graduates from there have a wonderful future. So there is, and plus we also had the Catholic schools, the
Uh-huh.
nun schools, all of it. So
Yeah.
even being in a Muslim country, that didn't take away from it. You still can go to like like normal Catholic girls' school just to graduate and go to college and not be a nun or anything, but
So
just
if-
go to school.
Yeah. So paint this picture for me. So let's say I'm growing up and I'm in high school and it's education's mandatory and I graduate high school and I'm on the track to become a doctor. Is there a certain school that I go to be a doctor, or do I go to a college like everyone else and I study medicine like here, or how's it
Well,
work?
it's interesting because for us, there was two pivotal moments in a student's life
Okay.
in Iraq. There was 9th grade and 12th grade.
Okay.
9th grade, we study, then we take a 45-day break where we just overstudy, and then we like kind of focus on all of the material that we have, and we go and do exams.
Okay.
Based on our grades and what we either get into a literature major on 9th grade, you decide your future basically,
Really?
or a scientific major. Now, if you have a
my
higher
goodness.
grade and you still want to go to like a literature thing, or you want to go to an art school, or you want to go to be a lawyer, we consider that
Yeah.
kind of a literature and nothing scientific in a way.
Right.
So biology, like anything physics, chemical, whatever.
Yeah.
You go into more of a scientific major.
Mm-hmm.
And then that time, so 10th grade and up, 10th to 12th, 10th, 11, and 12, you kind of specify. So while we teach you everything,
Uh-huh.
but you have more of a focus on biology,
Okay.
science, whatever, if you are going to scientific. You have
Yeah.
more focus on language,
Makes sense.
grammar, and all the other stuff if you're going through a literature major, because that's what will help you out. All of the colleges are in English.
Really?
Nothing in
Why
Arabic.
is that?
It's always has been. We were
In
invaded-
English?
Yeah, like remember, Iraq was invaded by the British, so all of our
Oh,
culture is kind of
yeah.
invaded, like kind of a little bit more, kind of in a British style in a way. Even our country clubs in a way, we call
Yeah.
them like clubs. We have very common. We go
Uh-huh.
in where you have like riding lessons, and you have the bingo nights and swimming lessons and partying
So
and all these
English
parties.
is a very common language for everyone.
We learned it when we were in kindergarten, honestly. Like,
but
it's a
still
lesson that-
Arabic
yeah,
is the
it's our first-
preferred,
well,
or
Arab-
do you hear people speaking English around
yes, we do. Like,
Baghdad and around?
you do in the right context. Like, you're
Okay.
not going to go to your friend's or neighbor's house and speak to them in English.
Oh,
Just like
okay.
you wouldn't
well,
go here, even if you like
Yeah.
in a community where everybody speaks Spanish, right? But you all speak English. Spanish is your
Right.
first language. You speak Spanish even though you live in the U.S.
Yeah.
So kind of a similar thing. We all speak Arabic, but when it comes to like, that's why like one of the things that the government at the time was really big on sending people into missions and outside of the country to kind of get higher education.
yeah.
So everybody speaks the language because we felt it's a necessity. in a
And
way.
aren't there different dialects of Arabic?
Oh yes, there were so many. in
Really?
every
How many
country.
do you think? Who knows? I guess.
Like I think there's more than 28, probably, if not more.
Really? So it depends on what region you're in, kind of.
Not
or-
necessarily region. Every country have their own dialect,
Okay.
right? And then every country itself have 3 to 4 different accents that they
Is
use.
that
if
right?
not more. So like my parents originally are from northern Iraq, from Nineveh, from Mosul.
Okay.
Originally they're family trees, and so we speak Musuli.
Musuli.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So it's a little bit more. You say the gha and the qa a little bit more.
Teach me to say something.
Um, okay,
let's
this
do
is
this. Wait, hold
a
on.
good.
I want to do this. What are those? Teach me how to say that.
شنو هذا؟
Shunahade?
Yeah.
Shunahade. Like that?
Kind of, yeah.
Wait, say it again.
شنو هذا؟
Shunahade. All right. What are those? All right.
So, like a famous saying in Muslim that normally, like they say it like a tongue tie.
yeah.
They say واحد قال له تعال قل لي، إيش ما يقول لك تعال قل لي.
What's that?
Go tell him, come tell me. Whatever he tells you, come tell me. So if you can say that 10 times, then
it's like a tongue
that.
twister.
Yeah, tongue twister.
Say it one more time.
واحد قال له تعال قل لي، إيش ما يقول لك تعال قل لي. So if you
Oh,
can say
goodness.
it and you say it really fast, then
Yeah.
you know you are from
Okay.
kind of from there, and you
Oh,
can
it's
see it
like a
because somebody
test,
from
yeah.
Baghdad or somebody from like Anbar or from,
Uh-huh.
from Tikrit or from Basra wouldn't be able to say it pretty fast because it's a
Whoa.
difference. So and
You know
then-
what that reminds me of?
What?
Listen to this. So, I don't know if you've ever seen Inglorious Bastards. It's so good. So it's a Quentin Tarantino movie. And, excuse me, and it's so great. One of my favorite actors is in it, and his name is Christoph Waltz. He's so good, and he plays the Nazi in that movie. There's this scene where I think these two guys are American, and they're trying to play Germans, and they're in this bar, right? They're in this pub, and they're sitting there, and he's trying to. Christoph Waltz is kind of testing them. He's like, I don't believe these guys. I don't think they're German. So he's asking them. He's like, where are you from? And they're like, oh, we're from here. Blah blah blah. And he's like, oh yeah, what was your family's last name? And what did you eat in that region? You know, testing them, and they're answering all these questions because they're spies and they've studied it. And then he goes to order 3 drinks, and he goes, "Yeah, I'll take." So German is eins, zwei, drei, 3 more, you know. But he goes like this, and in Germany they do this for 3, and so a nonverbal cue like this, that's a cultural difference, it gave him away, and he knew at that moment. So that reminds me of that. It's like
I'll tell you a story later about that.
Tell me now.
Not later on.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, well, then let's talk about this. So this is what's very fascinating. I think people will find fascinating is tell us about your father and what he did, what position he held, and go off on that a little bit.
So my father comes from a very famous family in Baghdad, or Iraq overall. We had ministers of finance. We had I told you, the cardinal. So there was a famous saying, if you read Arabic books, whatever, they will say, the Ghanima family, you own the earth and you own the land. The land by the minister of finance. By the time, and he was the minister of finance when we had the kingdom back then with the king and all of
the
that.
monarchy.
Yeah. The family has been there for ages and centuries and centuries.
The Ghanima name?
The Ghanima name, right? And it's mixed from a little bit different countries and stuff, but as far as I know, we descended from Nineveh, and then that's the way it came in.
Okay.
There is a family tree. My extended family can tell you a little bit better about it.
Yeah.
My dad was in the military.
Okay.
He
was high up.
Yes, he is the youngest, kind of wherever he ranked in the way, real admiral in the Iraqi Navy.
He was an admiral.
A real admiral.
Real admiral?
Yes. In the Iraqi Navy.
So under Saddam and that regime, right? He was
he's a real admiral. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
He was. He is the youngest. He had.
How old was he?
He was young.
Like early 40s, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
If not younger a little bit.
Wow.
I think in the 40s probably when he got to real admiral.
Yeah.
My dad's 68 right now? 67? 68. Yeah, 68 I think.
Okay. My dad's 66, something like that. 65,
yeah, so 68. You're right.
Okay. Yeah.
Think about it like that, wise all the way back. He was
what was
also,
that like, growing up with your dad as a real admiral?
Well, it was wonderful. My dad taught us something that I will forever be grateful for. Failure is not an option. He was very open with us. He's never been the parent. I think there is a common parenting method where people say, "Oh, don't say that in front of children.
Yeah.
Or children, you need to go to bed because we can't say this in front of you."
Yeah.
My dad was the opposite. Everything was
Really?
in front of us. Everything he did not hide. He did not kind of believe in, "Oh, you can't say it. If you're gonna say it, then say it in front of them, and I'm gonna teach them
Is
what
that
it is."
right?
I believe that this is kind of what made us the way we are today.
Did y'all get spanked when you were
I don't
little?
recall. We did
Is that common in Iraq?
It is common.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a little bit about education and kind of, in a way, hitting the child or not hitting the child.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But I think I've got slapped once in my lifetime because I was had a sharp tongue. Let's say.
Yeah. Okay.
So my whole entire livelihood probably once.
Yep.
It wasn't. It's
Wow.
not something. I think in some families it's probably common. In my family, I haven't seen it that much.
Okay.
But respect was kind of something that was not an option in a
Wow.
way. Like if your dad will come and
you
look
have
at you.
a brother, right? You
I
just
do
have
an
one
older-
sibling.
Yeah,
okay.
I have an older
Older
brother.
Okay.
Tons of cousins that I
Safe is his name,
correct.
yep.
Tons of cousins that I adore.
Mm-hmm.
We're all very kind of tight in a way.
Yeah.
Family back home is not only your siblings.
Okay.
And not only your immediate family. So we go to extended family, cousins of cousins, and cousins of cousins, and cousins of cousins.
Really?
So soon enough, here in the next couple of months, I'm going to go to Canada. And some of the people I'm going to visit is my dad's second, third cousins.
Wow.
But we
Okay.
all are very close-knit that we go to each other's weddings and graduations.
Oh, very cool.
And,
Yeah.
so happy.
So it's more like your siblings instead of just
kind of,
cousins.
in a ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. My immediate cousins are definitely my siblings.
Yeah,
In a way.
okay.
Like, it's a life or die. Like we told you, we had a wedding in last May in Cabo. And it's like I just met my brothers and sisters, all of them together. So it was the most wonderful experience ever because we all pitch in for each other. It doesn't matter. We all will help. And one person's problem is all of our problems.
I love that. That's really...
Family is
don't
a
see
huge
that
deal
anymore.
in the Middle East.
Really?
So one of the things that is a common misperception is it's due to...
Bring that just a little closer.
Yeah.
Got to be
It's
pretty up
due
on it.
to kind of more of a... How do you say it? People think that kids live with their parents even in older age, like my age and older, is because the family is a shame or because of like a closed
Like
mentality.
the kids can't succeed, so he has to live at home, that kind of...
Exactly.
But it's different.
For us, it's completely different. So we believe in putting people up to their position in a way. So what the culture is, regardless if you're a guy or a girl, it's
Okay.
not a sexist kind of mentality.
Okay.
It's more of you're gonna live with your parents until you get married, and the reason you do it is because when you graduate, and 99% of the kids that I grew up with, didn't really work until they graduated college. It's not a
so
common
it's not
thing.
common to have a job while
Not
you're in
at
college
all.
like it is here. Okay.
You get the job after you graduate, and you kind
Gotcha.
of. Most people work in their line of graduation.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So the reason that happens is because your parents support you through it. And then there is not a mentality unless you like. So for instance, when you would live outside of your parents, if you go and travel to another city.
Yeah.
Because like, for instance, you're a doctor, you're doing your residence, you're going to go serve in like northern Iraq, but your family is in Baghdad. You're not going to like go all of them together with you.
Right.
You're going to go and do your own
for sure.
thing. But if you're living in the same city, it's very like, it's kind of like everybody does it, that they live with their family. So whenever you decide to get married, you have your own wealth. You have,
Oh, cool.
we don't really allot finance to buy a house. 90% of the population just buy a house.
Wow. You mean you don't finance it? It's not
No,
financed.
it's not financed.
Really?
We just buy outright because we
Oh,
live with
good.
our
That's
family. We
crazy.
saved up our money.
Yeah.
Your parents normally will get you your first car if you need it. They
See,
will give you
that's
everything.
such an American thing.
The colleges, most of the time, so we have private colleges, but one of the great things that we have back in the Middle East, there's free colleges for everybody. So
Right.
anybody that
Yeah.
want to be a doctor, an engineer, and there are high-ranking colleges
Yeah.
that you can go to, and you can kind of just attend school and
Right.
go and finish and get your master, your doctorship. You don't have to
That's
pay
cool.
money to get like higher
Right.
education. So it was really interesting to see the difference in culture between there and here.
Oh, yeah.
I myself wanted to be like a medical engineer at the time.
Okay.
So I studied up. I got really good grades. But after I finished high school, the day after exactly, so June 17th of 2004, I finished high school. June 18th of 2004, I left Baghdad and went
go
to
where?
Syria at the time.
Syria for
Yeah,
college.
We went, well, I wasn't going necessarily for college. We were leaving the country, which was a dream. Like, not a dream. It was more of an unnormal reality for me, at least. So
In what way?
The backstory, like, I remember... So some of the reasons why we left, as I shared with you, were from a Christian family. My father used to be in the military. After the regime fell, my dad also worked with a couple of security companies that came in from the U.S. and from like an international group stuff. Everybody has to find a job in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the regional director for one of the security companies called Diligence and Group for Falk.
Okay.
So he worked there, and he helped people find jobs. Some of it's all teammates.
So y'all were leaving. So during the time that the regime fell, Iraqi freedom.
We were in Iraq, so the plan was never to leave.
Okay.
Afterwards, we
All
were
right.
okay. In a way, the Middle East is long live the king, long
Yeah.
die the king. It's not a big deal. Somebody will leave, somebody will come in. As
Yeah.
long as there is safety, nobody really cares in a way.
Okay.
So interesting, funny story. I was a kid. I wasn't like I wasn't a kid. I was like what, 11th grade maybe when the war happened in 2003, because
Yeah.
the 12th grade I graduated in 2004. So the same people a week before who were like, Saddam Hussein went to this, like one of the main central points in Baghdad, and they were like, oh, go live Saddam. The
Yeah.
same exact people, same exact faces were the same people who were like throwing like their flip-flops at his statue the next week
Right.
when
Yeah,
the
yeah,
regime
pulling the head
fell.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't like anything, whatever. Like, it's really interesting to
Huh.
see.
Yeah.
Was he a dictator? 100%.
Yeah.
Was there some good and bad aspects in life? Absolutely. I'll
There
tell
were
you a
things
very,
Saddam did great
Yeah.
for Iraq. Absolutely.
I'll
yeah.
say education is one of them, and I will tell you too. What's really interesting. A week before the war, we were in an event that we had to go to, and it was me, my family, and we had like a concert that we were attending, and we were gold. We were everything. I was wearing a dress. My mom was all dressed up, and in the other side of Baghdad is super huge. It's kind of
Okay.
like, I
How
would say
many-
as big in New York.
Is it?
Yeah, I will
Oh,
say Baghdad
wow.
is really
Okay.
big.
Yeah, I
So
was
we
gonna
were on
ask you
one
that.
side, and the others, our house was on the other side of Baghdad.
Okay.
And our car broke down at 2:00 in the morning.
Uh-oh.
No big deal. We found a place. We parked the car.
Mm-hmm.
We called a taxi, and a taxi took us home. We were
Okay.
all like with our goal. There was no fear. Like
Right.
somebody will kill us, rape
Yeah.
us, murder us, whatever. Ask me a week later after the war,
Oh,
I
it
would have
changed?
never dared to get out.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
Were there
There was
was
no
there
safety.
rioting and chaos in
Not
the streets?
rioting and chaos. So here is what's really interesting. So to give you the perspective that the war happened and everything. So I used to go to high school. So I remember still 2003. when the first strike happened, the military strike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
The
was
actual
sleeping.
American strike on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we heard it on TV. They were saying like, yeah, George Bush, like Saddam resigned, or we're gonna come in and we're gonna strike and all of that. And what's interesting, I don't know if everybody knows this. He did say, "I will resign" in the last moment,
really?
but then
Okay.
it didn't matter anymore.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like what
he
they're-
surrendered, but then it
Kind
didn't
of
matter.
not surrendered, but he said, "I will resign." Not
Oh, he's
surrendered.
stepping down from
Yeah.
dictatorship. Okay, from being a dictator. Okay.
So it was interesting in a way. So nothing really, like to me as a teenager, it really didn't hit that it's a big deal. And the most
Yeah.
thing that I was worried about is that day I had a physics test.
Really?
So the war happened, like
Yeah.
the first military strike happened. I remember my brother waking me up, my mother waking me up, come down, whatever, because we had a
Ooh, I'll
three-story
tell
house.
you my experience in a minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Three-story house coming down, and like my dad was leaving because he was like I told you, he was a high-ranking.
Yeah,
at
he
the
had to-
time.
to
Well,
go-
honestly, at the time he was not. At the time he was the dean of the Arab Gulf Academy for
Okay.
Maritime Studies, and he had taken a sabbatical a little bit to do his doctorate degree. So he was studying in the college, whatever.
Yeah.
But he has a lot of knowledge. He has a couple of masters, so he was chosen to one of the 50, 60 people that he has to be plugged out and taken to a place like we didn't know where he went.
Oh, wow.
To be safe, so in case
Secretive. Yeah.
yeah, like it's kind of protecting your assets and your
Yes,
wealth
exactly.
in a
Yeah.
way. So we lost contact.
With your dad?
Yes,
For
a
how
while.
long?
It was a good
Was
like
that
10 days.
scary?
Freaked out scary. Because you would never know if he's alive. Every
So-
day, Saddam Hussein during the war will come out on TV at a certain time, and he will tell you the name of the officers that passed away. that day.
Really?
So
Oh my
everybody-
gosh. So your
at
family's
first-
sitting there in front of the TV like,
So here's what's
please, God.
interesting. We couldn't tell anybody in the beginning. So we made the executive decision, my mom did, to tell my uncle, my dad's brother, because
Yeah.
we couldn't not tell anybody
Tell them what?
that he was gone.
Okay.
Like, so
Oh, okay.
nobody knew like where he is,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
happened.
yeah. Okay.
So life went through. It was about like the entire process was a little bit rough in all fairness. So that happened that day. I still went to school to check so everybody was telling me the school is shut down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have a physics exam. I cannot fail my test.
Yeah.
So I had my mom walk me to school
That's
in the middle of the war to go see if there was
Wow.
a test. And then I showed up, and then the people who were cleaning the school, whatever, that they normally stay there, they were like, "It's all shut down. What are you doing here?" I'm like, well,
There's
the
no physics test today.
I'm like, my
Yeah.
test. What are we gonna do?
Dang.
But it was interesting. And then we go back home and everything is happening, and it really didn't click. And like you see the whole entire experience, and then it started the worry. I'm super close to my father.
Yeah. And you had no idea if he was alive or
No,
not.
we don't. And then the line of communication got cut down. So there was
Oh
no
my
phone calls.
gosh.
There was no nothing. There was one place in Baghdad that you can call or you get phone calls on.
One place.
So eventually we left the house.
Yeah.
And we had to go stay with my grandma from my mom's side.
Okay. Where at?
In Mansour. It's still in Baghdad.
Okay, yeah,
Right?
mhm.
But we left our house, whatever.
Yeah.
It felt like it's not a safe
That must have
environment
been
for us to just
scary.
stay me, my brother, and my mom.
Yeah.
So we went in and we stayed all together, and life happened. And
Well,
my
what about your dad? So what happened?
we didn't know where he is.
For how long?
For a while, for
Like
about a couple of
months?
weeks. Yeah, the entire war almost lasted a month if you
Yeah.
think about it.
So like weeks.
Yeah, for a couple of weeks, for 3-4 weeks. So
Okay.
I didn't hear anything from my dad. I think the war started in like the beginning of March 5th
Yeah,
or 7th, if
mhm.
I remember correctly. We didn't hear anything until April 1st. Well, we heard something before from him, but we didn't see him until April 1st, April Fool's Day. So we
April
consider-
Fool's Day.
So I'll tell you the story there in a
Okay.
minute. But so my grandmother, my mom's mom, drove everywhere.
Yeah.
She still drives. She's about 85 plus
Good for
years
her,
old,
yes.
plus years old.
Yeah.
God bless her soul. She is wonderful. So on the other side of Baghdad, so about
Wow.
45 minutes to an hour away,
Mhm.
we had relatives that lived in one of the areas there that had
Yeah.
a phone line connection,
Okay.
if we heard. So
Oh.
in the middle of
So
strikes,
y'all drove to the phone line
in the middle of
connection.
strikes, so Baghdad is kind of like the two. So you have the Tiger and the Euphrates little
Rivers, yeah.
kind of,
Mhm.
and we're connected. The two sides of Baghdad are connected by the bridges.
Give me 1 sec.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
So they're connected by the bridges.
Yeah.
So with all of the bombing, with all of the craziness, all of the kind of the uncertainty, because
Yeah.
you don't like when war happens, people get to tend to be crazy in
Yeah.
a way. So she actually took us. She took me, my mom, and my brother to go to the other side to kind of find a phone call to call my dad, whatever.
Wow.
so
Yeah. How did you have a number to call?
we did not. So
Okay.
somehow a friend of his contacted us and said, hey, I don't remember the exact thing, but like, hey, if you are at that house at this minute, he will call you there.
Whoa, it's like a
went
movie.
Yes, kind of. So we went there and the phone rang and I took it. And I remember the entire time there, everybody was telling me, do not cry on the phone.
Oh.
I did.
You did?
Of course I did.
When you heard his voice. Oh, I can only imagine. Your dad's gone. You don't know if he's dead or alive.
Well, we didn't know what's going to happen.
What was it like hearing his voice on the other end of that line?
It was wonderful.
Oh, that's incredible. And what did he say?
Just that he's fine, just asked about us, like really not a lot. He was just checking about us and how we were feeling and
I
how
wish
is
I had
everything.
a Kleenex. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I understand. So he was just checking on you and just like so happy to hear your voice, and you heard his. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So I cried, he cried, the whole thing.
Yeah. And it was on April Fool's Day?
No,
Oh,
this was
okay.
before.
Oh, wow.
And then we lost contact again.
So wait, did he say where he was or
No,
anything?
he
probably
couldn't say.
couldn't.
No, he could not say.
All right. Okay.
He wasn't like part of like the entire like whatever, but he was just put up away basically somewhere.
Yeah.
And just like my dad has a lot of crazy stories that he can tell you.
Yeah.
but,
I want to talk about that here in a minute.
Yeah. So, but this was a pretty crazy story. He ends up, the regime fell and we still didn't know where my dad was. We still
Wow.
have, at the time, there was really no communication,
Yeah.
no line communication, no nothing.
Yeah.
So scary part, April Fools happened, we're all sitting. So my grandma's house is pretty unique. She had built up 2 parts of the house to my 2 uncles that are married and have their kids.
Okay.
So kind of we're all there. My
Yeah.
aunt from my mom's twin, like all of us are there. We're all together. My mom's uncle lived like kind of a couple of blocks away. So my mom and my grandma went to see him with my aunt. I stayed at the house with my brother, my grandma's, and we have she has this little living room that is like surrounded by glass, and then you go to a long kind of hallway to the garage,
Yeah.
kind of sort of. And I remember we take April Fools to the extreme a little bit, so we all joke around and do all kind of like practical
Yeah.
jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember my uncle's wife, Aunt Reem, came in and said, "Your dad is here," and we were like,
Oh my gosh. On April Fool's Day.
"That's a sick joke. No,
Yeah.
that's not fair.
Oh,
Don't say
yeah.
that." It was like, "That's April Fools, ha ha ha." She was like, "No, I promise. I saw your dad. Your dad is outside."
Did you run?
Oh my God, yes. We ran, both me and my brother. I don't know how. I jumped over the fence.
Are you serious? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dang, you hurdled the fence.
Yes,
and
I
it was
heard
him?
the film. It was him.
Did y'all hug?
Of course we did.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
I did not fall after the fence.
Yeah, right. No, that's cool.
Yeah, so from
Oh, I
there,
bet that was
life
the
kind of
best feeling ever.
changed. Yes, we went to my other grandparents' house, and we like somehow my mom got back, and it was just like life reimagined in a way.
Oh, wow. You were reunited. Yeah.
Yeah,
Family was fully back together.
absolutely.
That's incredible. So, man, thank you
from
for
there,
sharing
yeah.
that. So, my experience, what's interesting as I was thinking about as you're going through all of this on the other side of the world. So, what I experienced, so at Central High School, I was a sophomore. And I remember the morning of 9/11, everybody remembers where they were.
Of course. I remember
And-
being in the living room.
Really?
Yeah.
So I was in my bedroom. We lived on Cottonwood Street, 315 Cottonwood Street, a block away from Central High School. And it's funny because my coaches and teachers would always make fun of me and my friends because I lived a block away and I was always late to school every day.
Of course you were.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there and I'd just taken a shower. And for some reason, I think I had to go into school a little bit late or something. And I was getting ready. And in my room on TV, I saw a plane had hit the first tower. And no one really knew what was going on. It seemed like an accident. It was something interesting on the news, and I'm sitting there watching it, and there was speculation on what it could be. And then I went to school, and the second plane hit, and that's when everyone knew that this was a malicious attack. It was a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
And we had never experienced anything like that. The closest thing we can compare that to is Pearl Harbor, which is how we entered World War II, and so in 41. And so that's just something you hear about. And so to experience an actual attack on American soil, you don't know how to react. You don't know how to respond. You don't know what's the right thing to do. It's a strange feeling. And I remember, though, one of the coolest things about 9/11 that anyone will tell you that grew up during that time and experienced 9/11, that was old enough to understand how the world changed, is one of the neatest things about that time was post 9/11, the way that the country united and came together was unlike anything I think we'll ever see again. And it was probably a lot like after Pearl Harbor, the time during World War II when all Americans pitched in and everyone was on the same page about what we were doing and what our intention was and what the American goal was, and it's interesting to see. It's sad to see the country so divided and so divisive, and it's really unfortunate that something catastrophic like that is required for us to come together and unite. But in a way, I mean, although it's so sad, all those people, all those victims of that horrible crime.
It's horrible.
But it's really neat to have experienced going through that. Yeah, being able to experience the country in a rare form like that was incredible.
A catastrophe has to happen for people to come together.
It's so unfortunate, and that's what I mean about it being one of those things where I'm grateful I got to experience it, but at the same time, it's a horrible tragedy. But anyway, one thing I'll never forget is that after that time, weeks after that time, as I remember George W. was on TV a lot talking about how we were going to find out who was responsible for this, and they were going to pay. And for some reason, we got this intel that it was some terrorist, incel organization out of Afghanistan. But then all of a sudden, it shifted to Iraq. The target and the focus, the microscope was on Iraq, and everybody's like, "What in the world?" And because he had constantly been preaching weapons of mass destruction. And I just remember as that happened and we were going to war, I remember my dad and I were at Sonic drive-thru, and we were at the one on Knickerbocker. And I was 16, I think, 15, 16 years old. And
16,
I remember, 16. And I remember my dad, we were sitting there and we were listening to the radio, and we were listening to them talk about the war and invading Iraq. And we were declaring war on Iraq. And my dad looked at me and he said, do you understand what this means? And I said, yeah, I mean, it's war, I guess. And he goes, do you know what that means? That we're declaring war on them, on another country. He said, things are about to change. And I was like, what in the world? I remember having this sort of, not an out-of-body experience, but almost like an out-of-time experience. Like, it's almost like I could take myself out of that moment and see the timeline from a perspective higher above. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, like, this is a point in time that a lot of different Americans have gone through in different ways throughout different wars. And I remember thinking, well, what if they bring the draft back? Like, they could. I asked my dad, I said, is that possible? And he said, well, it's probably unlikely, but they certainly could. And I remember thinking, like, this must have been what they felt like during Vietnam War or World War II or World War I,
So we did have the draft.
Did? Y'all did?
We did, yeah.
Really?
But
y'all had a draft?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
So every male who is 18, who gets the age of 18, have to go and serve for a couple of years, and then they go back to
It's
go to
mandatory.
college. Yes, unless you are an only child, because they don't want to take away, or if you have a medical reason. In a way,
exempt medically or something.
If you're also the only man in the house.
Oh, interesting.
So if you're a male and you have 3 females, other females, then you're exempt because you're the only one that can carry your family's legacy in a way.
Right.
So legacy is a huge deal over there. To me, I'll tell you one thing that I've learned. Pre-war, war, craziness after the war, life, and we'll talk about that a little bit after with the UN, taught me that life is precious. Stress is exaggerated.
What do you mean?
We believe like everything in life like is, oh my God, I've heard a lot in my career. There's people say, oh, this is so stressful. I cannot handle it. This is too much. I'm like, but did you die?
Have no idea. Yeah.
But did you die?
Did you
get
die?
kidnapped? Did you get killed? Do you have a threat on your life? No.
Right.
Then life is okay. Everything else can be figured out by the will of God. And if you're really a true believer and you believe in God and you have your own belief system, no matter, regardless of what it is, then everything will get situated in place.
Yeah.
Part of life is difficulties, and we cannot go through the good times if we don't go through the trials.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's where the most growth is in the valleys.
I think that what people like kind of miss most of the times is like, oh, but I'm a good person, so I have to go through the bad times.
That's not true. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're required.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about. I want you to just touch briefly on some of the things that your father, as a war hero, went through, like the story about the man's life that he saved and the burns and all that. Tell that real quick.
It was during the Iraqi-American War, 1980 to 1988. It lasted 8 years.
Iraqi and Iranian war, you said.
Correct.
Okay.
So we had a war between the two countries, and
of course. Lots of those, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of those that happened, but this one was one of the biggest wars,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of over a piece of land in a way in the
Okay.
Gulf. So everybody will call in the Middle East will call the Gulf the Arab Gulf, and everybody in Iran will call the Parisian Gulf.
Yeah.
So
they're trying to
it's
claim
a whole
ownership
story,
of it.
and
Yeah.
then different. Iran after the Shah and after the Shah regime kind of fell down is completely different country. Iranian people are super nice people if you want to be honest about
Yeah.
it. But unfortunately, like every other country, when there is extremist,
Mm-hmm.
that's what took over. And when religion becomes your only value that you are kind of going above, just like a crusade, it wasn't all good if you think about it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Nothing kind of lasts, and then the quality of life kind of goes down because now you're being forced to do things. You're not doing them out of free will or out of will of doing the best for your country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting. So during that, my dad, he was still young in his, I want to say in his 20s because we're talking about the
Really?
80s. Yeah, 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe.
He was a
right?
youngster.
20s, 30s, maybe. Early 20s, probably.
Yeah.
So what happened there is he was on a ship and the ship got bombed by the Iranian because there was an active war, and the ship burned.
Wow.
So he jumped into the Gulf and he swam, and in his part of his way, he saw one of his friends and he saved him, and then he swam with him. My dad had an 87% third-degree burn, swimming with another person, making sure
They
he get
say,
them
I think it's over 60% or something like 65%. The rate of survival is extremely low when you have burns over 65%. So that's crazy.
He was completely burned that nobody could even recognize who he is, except
Really?
for my grandmother from his feet.
His feet.
Yes.
She recognized.
So my
wow.
father, we talked about being from a Christian family. He has what's interesting story there. We had a cross that has a piece of the cross of Jesus.
Uh-huh.
Everything in his body burned except for that.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a family, and then it
Whoa.
got so after he got to shore, it disappeared.
Oh no.
So
like
interesting
a family
story there.
heirloom.
Yeah, kinda. Interesting story. Years and years later, it came back. It was
How?
One of the officers took it because they saw that
What?
it kind of stayed, and he said, "Hey, I took it because my kid is sick, and I needed him to save it." So that the story is that he put the cross under, and he's a Muslim, so he put the cross under his son's. It's twice we've seen that actually under his son's pillow,
Uh-huh.
and his son got up and was healed.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's super interesting. But so that's kind of the story about my dad. He was written in a newspaper. They have a movie about him actually on YouTube called Sakhab al-Bahar.
No way.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Sakhab al-Bahar. It's kind of the loudness of the sea.
Whoa. It's about your dad?
It's about their whole team, like their whole
Okay.
unit in a way.
Okay.
But he was in it as well.
Yeah.
Not himself, but an actor.
Yeah.
That kind of looked like him. I'll show you the movie later on.
Yeah.
But then he met and after that he met my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And he went through extensive surgeries. He went to London, and then 1982 they got married.
Okay.
83 they went to Italy.
Yeah.
My brother was born there in Italy.
Okay. In
And like-
83?
yeah.
82? When were you born? 87?
87. Yes.
Where were you born?
I was born in Baghdad actually.
Okay, yeah. But
Yeah.
then you went to India, you said,
Yeah,
right?
I did. 1990s, 1990, 1990,
So
1991.
how old were you in India?
Oh, I was
Like
3, 4. Yeah.
Do you remember some
yes,
of that?
I do. It's
You
so
do?
crazy. I remember a lot of it actually.
So some of your
I was
earliest
actually-
core memories probably
Yes.
are from that time.
I was
yeah.
actually recently in India a couple of months ago, and that's what I
really?
shared. Yeah, that's what I
Wow.
shared with the team there in India that I work with. It's really interesting to me that I remember those core memories and the
Yeah.
places and the people.
You liked it there?
Oh my God, I still love it.
Yeah.
Indian people are one of the most amazing people you will ever meet in
Cool.
your life.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful country.
Yes.
Amazing. You can see extreme
Wanna
wealth and
go.
extreme tourism.
Oh, I bet.
You
Yeah.
can see stuff that you cannot see like we lived in Upper Kenora in Wellington, and where the clouds legit comes to your windows.
Whoa.
Like you feel like you're in the middle because it's on the top of the mountain. And
Wow.
our next door neighbors were like the Russians, the Americans, the UK people, everybody. So we were friends with our British friends.
Mhm.
He was cousins with Queen Elizabeth. Our US friends,
Wow.
which we still kind of connected when he came back here in 2010,
Uh-huh.
was McGrail's at the time, and he was the pilot of Air Force One for George Father.
No way.
George Bush the father. Yes.
Okay, senior, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was, and they were all there. So when the war happened in 1991 and we were told to come back
To
he
Iraq?
to Iraq,
Yeah.
he actually stepped in and told my father, he was like, "Don't go back, come with us."
Oh,
Both
really?
of those two.
Why
were
did he tell
actually-
him that?
because it wasn't like they knew
was
that things
unstable
we were all
environment, it was-
friends, like the families were really becoming close and friends.
Uh-huh.
So he was like, don't go back, it's not going to be safe for you anymore.
Gotcha,
But
yeah,
my
yeah.
dad also had his extended family, his siblings, his mother, his father, my mom and her family. And it was at the time, because of the situation with the military and all of it, it wasn't a safe environment. If you just leave the country, then they take your whole family and kind of investigate with them.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
whole
Yeah.
dilemma. So we had to come back. My brother spoke fluent Indian. Don't ask me how.
Nice.
He will.
Wow.
We will every day. We'll go to school.
Yeah.
He went into an international school there, and it was it was some of our most amazing memories, I will say. But life happens. We got to travel. We got to visit.
Where else did you live?
A lot of places, in all fairness. But
Yeah?
I will say mostly, honestly, like the most significant amount of my life. And as we go through the journey, we talked about high school.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next significant place in my life was Syria.
And,
Is where I
and that
graduated.
was where you went to college, right?
Yes, I
What
went
was
to
your college called?
It was Damascus University.
Damascus
I graduated.
University.
Yeah, I
Okay.
graduated from
What
Damascus
was your
University.
college experience like?
Yeah, it was amazing, honestly. Syria is one of the most beautiful countries you will see. The Middle East is super close to each other in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So we left. I told you on June 18th of 2004. We went. It was 3 cars. It was my parents, a car with me, my brother, and my aunt Antoinette, and then my grandparents were another GMC that we were all driving together
Nice.
to leave.
Okay. Little convoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kinda. We left.
Yeah.
I never went back until about maybe 2019.
Back
No,
where?
sorry, not that's right. That's wrong.
2009.
Back to Iraq, 2009 or 8. I went back to get my nationality paper from Iraq, but I
Okay.
didn't go to Baghdad.
Oh, okay.
I did not see my friends. I did not see any
Oh.
of my kind of extended relatives. I have an uncle who still lives in Baghdad with his 2 daughters. They're a doctor and an engineer. But I haven't seen them since we left the country. It's so crazy. Well, we've seen them in Syria a little bit. Let me take that back. But since we left Syria in 2010, I haven't seen them. And it's the most interesting experience you will ever imagine, because I remember pre-leaving, my mom is packing everything, and everybody, my dad is saying we're leaving, everybody. And I didn't even tell bye to my friend or say, hey, I'm going to leave, because it didn't register in my mind that we're really leaving. We thought it was a joke
wow.
in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But they were completely serious. Like, they were packing. The entire house was being packed. All of the
Dang,
things.
yeah.
Like, a lot of stuff is being packed, and we're going.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Syria. We stayed there for a couple of months, and then kind of college time, we got my results for graduation. I did get to the school that I wanted to in Baghdad.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and my mom went back. My brother finished his education, actually, from Mansour University in Baghdad, which is a private university. He got a master, like a master of arts for computer engineering, and graduated from there. So he went back and actually lived, after we lived in Syria, me and my family, me and my mom and dad, he went back to Iraq a couple of months later. He couldn't do it. He was like, I want my friends, I want my family, and he lived with my grandparents.
Yeah. But what was your college experience like?
It was
Just briefly,
amazing. So, didn't go where I wanted to go in life. I just, like, we went in, we were walking one day and whatever, and we went to this little office where the college registration is like you do thing. And I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? I was like, okay, we don't know how long I'm going to stay here. So I have, I'm good in English, I'm good at whatever. So let me do English literature. It was exactly like that, which is completely the opposite, because I went to a scientific major in high school.
Okay. Yeah.
But because you have a scientific major, you have the opportunity to choose whatever you want.
Okay.
It's kind of a
That's
superior in
cool.
a way of
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
thing. So
So
I
what'd you
went there,
study?
English literature.
That was your major?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we went there, I studied there, and I had made some of the most amazing memories. College was phenomenal for me. 3rd year of college, we used to go, there was a group of 14 of us, some of my best friends and the best relationship I've
you
ever.
met them there?
They all of them met all
Wow,
of them
cool.
there.
From all over, or what? Did they live?
They were all actually from Syria.
Oh, wow.
Mostly.
Okay.
Some are from Lebanon. So Syria and Lebanon are super close, and
Okay.
people like kind of migrate back and forth.
Yeah.
But I had some of my best friends there. So we all kind of we used to go to the opera house.
Mm-hmm. Wow, cool.
So in one of our events of going to the opera at night, I see this kind of ad that says, "Hey, the UN is looking for a volunteer coordinator,
the
whatever."
United Nations.
Yes, it's the United
Whoa.
Nations Work and Relief Agency.
Okay.
3rd year. Now, reminder: we talked about my family is against us working. So,
That's right. Yeah.
So Syria
Forgot
is
college.
normal. So here's the thing: not normal. Syria, it's okay to work while you're in college, mostly. In Iraq, we're very strict over
Right.
you don't work until you graduate college. Regardless if you're a girl, a boy, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Just because higher education is super
cool,
something
yeah.
that we kind of look for.
Right.
So we all made the decision like, oh, we're all gonna apply. So we applied.
Oh, y'all all did? Your friends?
All of the 14 of us applied,
Whoa.
and then I got a call.
Did anyone else?
No, none of my
You're
friends
the only
did.
one?
Yeah. Of
You
my
got a
friends,
call
I got
from
a
the
call.
UN. What did
Yeah.
they say?
So they asked me to come down for an interview. Went down for the interview.
In Syria?
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the time, I did not tell my parents. I did not tell my
Why?
dad.
So
because
they'd
I'm
be scared.
Not scared. No.
Oh.
Because remember, I can't work until I graduate.
Oh,
So I'm like,
right. So it was a
prior
thing.
to
Like,
this, there was an experience where I got a job offer at the international school, in American International School in Damascus. And I had to reject it. It was a really good salary because my dad was like, nope, you cannot work while you're in college.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
you went to this interview. What was it like?
I went to the interview. It was wonderful. I got asked a lot of questions. I spoke a little bit of Italian at the time because I was taking also as a secondary class in my college thing. And so we went in, and I have both of my parents speak Italian fluently, of course. So it was easier for me, I will say. So then we kind of went in, and I did my interview. They asked me some background questions coming from a background of, I told him my dad used to be in the military. After the regime, he was a consultant for Paul Palmer when he came in. And then he worked for the security companies. So we've had a very open, since we were kids, like what politics are, what do you do,
good.
how do you act, diplomacy, all of that. So I passed my interview and I got offered the job. And that one became crazy because I had to go back and talk to my family about it. My dad said no.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, you were still in school though, right?
I was in third year of college, yes.
So what
I had
happened?
really high grades and we kind of, after a lot of discussions I was like, this is an opportunity I really cannot pass. And we made the opportunity of like, hey, you're going to go, but you have to maintain your grades. If you drop your grades, you have to quit.
Wait, you went to work for them but stayed in school?
Of course I have to.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh. Okay.
So let me explain. College in Damascus, and I don't know, like it could be here the same. I haven't been to college here. It's not necessarily you are in college from 8 to 5, whatever.
No, yeah, not
right?
here either.
So we had courses, whatever. So I will go, and they knew that I was in
Yeah.
college. So I will go work and then take a break.
I just would think working for the UN, you're not. You imagine it being not just like where your college is, like you're doing stuff like a regular job. You think you're like hopping all over the globe.
I am kinda. And what's interesting in Syria is your attendance is not part of your graduation.
Okay, yeah.
So as long as I have the notes and I'm studying all of the things.
That's how college used to be here. Now it's a little more intensive with attendance. They take it a little more seriously.
So Damascus University is actually have an equalizer with Oxford University.
Okay.
So they are kind of in a similar kind of, we study the same material, we study the same thing. Everything, of course, English literature, we study everything in English.
Yeah.
We had some of the most greatest professors, honestly.
I
it was a
bet,
really
yeah.
great experience. But we also had tons of funs. Every single day in Damascus, I remember going into college. Then we go to all Damascus, which is about like 20.
What y'all do for fun? Did y'all go
God,
clubbing,
yes.
to bars?
Not necessarily coffee shops
dancing.
and food. And we do go dancing, and there is food, and there is alcohol, and there's all of the luxuries.
What kind of dancing? Do y'all do like twerking?
No, we don't work. I think that's more
What
of an
kind of
American
dance?
culture.
Was it
we
like
dance
salsa?
normal. Not
Well,
we do
do a
salsa.
little
We
bit.
do it depends on the song. Like,
Yeah. Okay.
you just
Yeah.
don't go
But
in.
it was twerking not a thing. Then?
No. I think it's
Okay.
a little bit not the style there.
Yeah.
So we don't, but everybody like kind of in the same boat. So again, so Syria is a very interesting country when it comes to religions in a way.
Yeah.
So they have also a very big diversity. Actually, interesting fact about Syria, when the parade happens for Easter or for Holy Friday or everything, at the time, I don't know now, but even the president and his family will go and parade in the beginning of every parade. They will
What do you
attend
mean?
church. So they're
Parade?
Muslims.
Yeah.
And they go so they take the coffin of Jesus, whatever, the hypothetical, and they parade it across Damascus.
Yeah.
Him and his family will be the first people in the mass. And then after mass, even though they're Muslims, after mass, they will attend mass at the biggest church there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will go on parade with people all across.
Okay.
The government will close up all the streets just for Christian people to
Nice.
march and do our thing and whatever. It's a big celebration that everybody kind of celebrates
Cool.
and videos, and everybody decorates for Christmas regardless of the country.
Yeah.
So there was a kind of a respect of religion
Okay.
in a way.
That's cool. Yeah.
So worked with the UN.
What'd you do at the UN? Tell us
So
a
I was
little
a
bit
volunteer
about
coordinator, and also I was a project manager.
that. Okay.
I worked.
What kind of things
after.
were you involved in? Like,
So my project was United Nations Work and Relief Agency. I worked with Palestinian refugees in camps.
refugees,
Yes,
Palestinian refugees.
So we were responsible
Wow, I
for
bet you saw
camps
some
and
crazy
maintenance. I saw
stuff.
a lot of crazy stuff. I'm not going to get into a lot of it because a lot of it I can't speak to right now.
Yeah.
But it was it taught me a lot. I saw some craziness that changed my perception.
Like
A lot
like
in life.
what? You don't
like
have
I
to
saw
say
people,
specifically,
I
but
saw
like
people
what kind
killing each other from the same.
That's what I mean.
From
You saw
different
people
parties.
killing each
Yes,
other.
I did. Oh, I also saw the most interesting thing, which is people, especially now that we're talking
Wow.
through like a lot of the wars and everything that happened. I saw people selling their own people, like citizens, like a higher, like stuff
Selling
for
their
higher
own
money.
people.
Not
Yeah.
selling their own people. Sorry.
Like human
No,
trafficking?
not human trafficking. What I mean is like a banana that is like in Damascus for like 10 cents.
Okay.
They're selling it to the camp for like, oh, this is for like $15.
So they're like exploiting their people. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
But then they go to the UN and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to buy like a kilo of bananas and the kilo is going to be $15. We're
Yeah.
like, so I had to step in. So coming from a Christian family, my complexion is a little bit lighter, as you
Yeah.
can see. My hair was blonde then because we do have bleach. It's the most common
Yeah.
question I get asked.
Why are you blonde if you're Iraqi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get into like,
Yeah, you know, just looking at you, I don't know if I would necessarily think you were Middle Eastern. I might,
yeah.
just looking at you, if I just saw you, I would say maybe, you know, I wouldn't say Hispanic though either. I would say,
I get Italian,
know,
I get
Italian
Russian,
probably.
Ukrainian.
oh, I'm
I
sure
get,
you get it all.
yeah, I get a little bit of a
Ooh,
Greek.
Ukrainian.
Yeah.
Greek, yeah. Huh, anyway.
So I get kind of a mixture.
Yeah.
Especially because of the accents. I did travel a lot, so
Yeah.
I picked up accents from all over the
Was
world.
your accent thicker, but since you've been here, has it
Yeah,
gotten...
absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, some of my best friends and my coworkers and my
Wow.
old boss will tell you, like, when you first met me, it's not the same
Oh,
person
no
that I am today.
joke. Do you
In
think it'll
every
ever go away all the way?
I don't think so. I think because
Hopefully
I came
not,
in at
because it's awesome.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think I came in at an older age, so the accent
Yeah.
will still be there. Have
Yeah,
I came
yeah.
in at like way younger
Makes
age?
sense.
Like I came into
Yeah.
the US and I was what? Was
How old
2000
were you?
Well, it was 2010.
You were, so let's go ahead and jump to that. So you
Yeah.
came to the U.S. in 2010, and it was just you, or who came with you?
It was me and my family, me and my both of my parents. So that was a story by
and your
its own.
brother?
He had no, he hasn't yet. He was in
Oh.
northern Iraq. He was working. He's whatever. He was
on his
running with
own.
us. Yes, correct.
So where did y'all come? What state did y'all come to first?
We actually landed in Newark, New Jersey, flew in right away to
Huh.
Greenville, South Carolina, because my
Really?
mom's
That's
family was
beautiful there.
my mom's family. My mom's uncle actually has been here since the 70s. So is my
Okay.
dad's uncle in California.
Were y'all coming over as
Migrants.
was this an asylum for?
No,
for
it
your
was an
family?
immigration.
It was
a
just an
whole through
immigration, okay.
International Immigration office.
So y'all had to go
IMO.
through the formal
7 to
immigration
9
process.
years. Actually, it took us about 8.5 years
Is
to do
that
a full
right?
migration from. Yeah, we started on migration when we went to Syria in 2004. We didn't get out until
Wow.
2010. Think about 6 years.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So
Of-
it was an intensive.
Yeah, like it was a whole thing where they put your file at the bottom of the drawer because
Oh,
they
I'm
didn't want you
sure,
to leave.
because also
the
being
day
from
we
Iraq,
left, yeah.
just
So
terrorism's
interesting,
high, all that, yeah.
exactly, and you being washed, all of this.
Oh yeah.
Interesting story. So we applied in Syria. We did all of our work through Syria, through International Immigration Office, and then we had family. My mom's family was in Jordan, so we would
Yeah.
go there pretty often. And then in one of our couple last visits, we decided to go to the IMO office, and they were like, "Hey, you should have been traveled a long time ago. You should have not been stayed here yet.
What do you mean?
Like our papers should have been way more progressed than what we
Oh,
were."
I see. Okay.
So
Yeah.
because of like whoever they
Yeah.
have in the offices in Syria, they were hiding the files or doing whatever.
What?
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Wow.
So when we went there, we did some interviews, and then we got interviewed by the judges from the U.S.
Oh,
So
wow.
everyone
Like,
individually.
what
So
kind of
my
interview?
parents get. Well, they ask you the same. So
Oh,
backstory.
they make sure you're all on the same page and
Yeah, part of the
have the same
immigration
stuff.
process is asking you why are you leaving your country.
Okay.
So backing up a little bit to high school. After the war, I was almost kidnapped. I had to do the whole thing. Jumped in from a.
you're almost kidnapped.
Yeah, I was walking to school. I was walking back from school to the house. We were all debriefed by the time, like, hey, be careful. My two
because
uncles.
your dad was high up in the military. Yeah.
Well, at the time he
Or
was
'cause you were
not.
Christian
I'm a
family.
Christian.
Okay.
He comes from a multi background.
Yeah.
Worked with with international people, like from
Right.
the U.S. and Western cultures. So he'd become a target in our back. There was a
Yeah.
lot of things. My mom's brother actually was kidnapped. He was the first person to get
He was
robbed.
actually kidnapped. Wow.
And then he got fraud twice and then kidnapped. He was one of the first Christians to be kidnapped, and it was a horror story where my
Whoa.
cousins had to like sleep in the car to go to school. It was a kind of the saddest story
Whoa.
you'll ever hear. So I almost got an attempt for kidnapping, and that's why we left the country. Actually, I have the most up
Oh.
respect to my father because after all of that, he's like. He left all of his life that he built and worked so hard, his paid off house, everything, and decided to, and his good job, everything,
right.
and left the country to go start from scratch twice in his career
Wow.
after he's
That's
in his
right.
40s. So one in Syria and one
Syria
here.
and then U.S. Yeah.
So I will never.
I respect that. Wow.
He legit sacrificed his entire livelihood
Yep.
for us.
Wow. And so,
So-
what did he do? When he came here for work? What was
Um,
his?
At first, it was different. He got some odd jobs, so he worked a little bit with his. So we spent a month in South Carolina, and then we traveled to California because my dad's uncle was in California. He owns quick stops gas stations.
Nice, yeah.
So we were gonna go, and he worked there with him for a while. Didn't work out for them because family. You know,
working with
and then
family, business, and
he
family.
took every opportunity that he got. I will say in his 50s, which I thought it was the most humbling experience. But he never even flickered for it. He worked as a security guard.
Yeah.
For I think
Good
it was
for him,
from Walmart or whatever. But then after he kept applying, I told you he has a lot of degrees. He's
Yeah,
very
he's
well
multiple
educated.
degrees, right? Isn't he
And-
like a rocket scientist? Like, no
Kinda,
joke?
yeah.
Yeah.
He is. He's super amazing, honestly. Not rocket. Yeah, it's rocket scientist. I was like thinking,
Wow.
yes. So one of the things is he applied for the Defense Language Institute in
Okay.
Monterey, California, and then he got an interview, and then he got in, and that's how we moved to San Angelo, Texas. He
Because of the
got offered-
Intel base or what?
Yeah,
The
well,
Goodfellow?
yeah.
Oh, really? Got a job working?
We got a job in
what
a
was his
Goodfellow.
job at Goodfellow?
He came in as an instructor in Goodfellow Air Force Base, and when he left here to go to Maryland, he was the
Oh, he
director of the-
left here. When did he leave here?
2018, I think.
Okay.
To transfer to Maryland in the base there.
And he still does that there?
Yeah, he does.
So tell us a little bit then about moving to San Angelo. Let's get into the
Oh
San
my
Angelo
goodness.
era because this
So-
is where the good stuff is here. So you come to San Angelo. What year is it?
I come from 2011. So I
What
come
was it
from
like
like
for
a
you?
Starbucks in California is like between this cup and this cup. There was another cup that is a Starbucks. So like I remember moving to San Angelo in the
Oh,
middle
they're
of
that
nowhere.
close? You mean the Starbucks?
Yeah, they were like everywhere. And then the
Yeah.
time I moved to San Angelo, there was one
The one.
Starbucks in Sherwood Way. I'm like,
Yeah.
where's
The
Starbucks?
Sherwood Way location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What
it
was
was-
that like? A culture shock?
Oh my
like
God,
being in San
yes.
Angelo? Yeah.
Super cultural shock because California is big. You have
Yeah.
all kind of luxuries.
part
You
of
have
California?
We were in West
Monterey.
Central. No, we were
No.
in Central California actually
Okay.
at the time.
Yeah.
Next to Modesto.
Yeah.
West Central. Yeah. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
It was great. Moved to San Angelo. We stayed at the Clarion Hotel downtown when we first moved while he's getting situated in April and we're looking for houses.
Where were you working?
I was not working at the time.
Okay.
I worked with my dad's uncle for a long time in California. Did some stuff for the family, whatever. And then
Yeah.
when we came here, like I didn't have a job. I just moved with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's coworker, I think she was Chinese. Her husband started working. He used to apply for a company called Sitel at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Here in San
Yeah,
Angelo.
good old
So they
Sitel.
So they came in and they said, "Okay." My dad said, "Hey, here's an idea. Apply." Never ever have I ever worked in a call center before in my past.
Really?
It's
So
not
what was
something
that
I
like
did.
for you?
From alive in the craziness of the UN.
I bet it was like,
Yeah, think about my first job
this
was the
is
United
super
Nations.
easy. This is boring.
Not necessarily.
Because you were working for the UN, though.
Yeah, like we've done all kind of crazy stuff. We've
Yeah.
dealt with the crazy experiences. Some of my coworkers in the UN are now ambassadors and attaches, and like they work in DC,
Yeah.
and some in the UK now, or all
Yeah.
over the world, and some in Slovakia, some in Australia. To come in and working in a call center in San Angelo, Texas.
Yeah.
So I applied.
Mm-hmm.
I got an interview within 48 hours, and then we were just moving to our house in Green Meadow Drive.
In Southland?
Yes.
You know what's funny is San Angelo. Everybody's worked at Sitel that lives in San Angelo. Like if you're around the age of 30 to
I think
35
regardless
and
of your
up,
age, yeah.
everyone has worked there at some point, which is funny. But now that it's gone, you don't
Well,
see
it's
that
not
as
gone.
much. But it's not gone. It's
not
right.
gone.
It's changed
Well, it's not-
names, right?
We did change name. We did close the location, but we do have a virtual kind of.
And you still work for the
positions.
company.
I sure do. Super blessed and super thankful. Actually, just got a
It's-
promotion recently.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what is your job title now?
Director of Account Management.
You're an account manager.
Correct.
And so tell us a little bit about that. And now the company is called Foundever, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Sitel is now morphed into Foundever. Why? Because of some merger and acquisition type
We did
deals?
have a lot of mergers and acquisition. We had a merger and acquisition in 2000. I want to say 19.
Okay.
No, sorry. 2021.
21. Okay.
Yeah, 21. We Sitel merged with a company called Sykes, acquired a company called Sykes.
Yeah.
And then we became one big O family. So to kind of avoid and kind of going through the evolution of the company, we have amazing founder and co-founder in Lorana Brady and Olivier Camino.
Okay.
And they had a vision. So it's really interesting if you go back to their story, and we'll talk about that if it's relevant.
Yeah.
They're both originally from France.
Nice.
They graduated high school, and they
Speaking
started
of France, I see you're wearing, what's the brand?
Yves Saint Laurent.
Yves Saint Laurent. I was thinking I should start a brand because my last name is French, Cutrer.
Yeah.
Yves Saint Cutrer.
Couture,
Would you-
couture.
Ooh, Cutrer, Couture. That's good.
You're
Would you
welcome.
wear it, my brand?
Well, it depends. Are you going to give me free samples?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll wear it.
All right. If I bring you a purse, you have to wear it.
Absolutely.
What was it again?
Couture Couture.
Cutrer, Couture. I like that. What about Juicy Couture? What about that one? I thought that was dumb.
It was
Yeah,
low.
but that's a cool brand, Yves Saint Laurent. So yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I started at Sitel as an agent on the phone back in 2011.
Okay. How long did you do that? How long were you an agent?
Oh, for a couple of months, and then I
A
moved up
couple
to
months?
yeah,
And then what?
moved up to a coach apprentice, and from there to a coach, and then operation manager apprentice, operation manager, and then I
Wow.
became senior operation. I think it was a global operation manager.
Whoa. Okay.
And then I moved. So backstory: there was a lady who came to our site. Her name is Rachel Rybecki that I will forever be thankful for.
Okay.
And she's an account manager at the time. She came back, I think, 2014 or 15 to our site here in San Angelo. And I saw Rachel and said, one day I want to be her.
Really?
And
How come?
because she is a wonderful, amazing professional. She is.
You admired this woman.
I did.
What about her makes her?
I think the way she
admirable?
carries herself, the way that her talent is, the way that she defends her values in a way. But at the same time, I've always come up with solution instead of a problem. And I think that's the biggest thing. So in the culture mostly that you see, in my perspective, I see a lot of problems when people come to you and bring you here. The culture like, oh, I have a problem. But nobody comes to you and say, I have a problem and here's the solution.
That's
I
true.
would propose.
Yeah.
And Rachel kind of built up that mentality from a young perspective, from a
Nice.
young age with everybody that she worked with. So she just carried herself in a way that is amazing. And long behold, 2021 happens and I moved to account management. I was a part of a project called We Lead for our organization where they fostered new generation into new positions. And kind of if you have a talent or somebody believes in you, they give you mentors and you kind of move up through your career.
Yeah.
And then I got into account management and my first boss was actually Rachel.
Really?
And was the best thing that I've
As
ever
an account
had.
manager?
Yeah, as an account
okay.
manager, my first
And you
job.
were just
And
touch
here, my
briefly
job-
on.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And here, there's a couple of people that I really owe a lot of to my career into. And
Yeah.
Susan Spencer used to be our site director
I
here
know
in San
Susan.
Angelo.
She's awesome.
Yeah. Susan was
Susan's great.
phenomenal
Yeah.
and helped a lot in developing my career and to get me where I am.
Yeah.
And so is a lot of my coworkers. You have Candy and Rhonda and David.
Yeah.
And we all built a super small, we brought a really good family environment.
Awesome. Yeah.
So really thankful for everybody.
We'll talk about this a little bit. So, as a woman in her mid 30s, it's not so common.
What do you mean mid-30s? I thought I was 29.
Mid-20s. So it's not extremely common, especially in San Angelo, Texas, to be a young professional and to work in a job that where the ceiling is very high. You can progress and get promoted and move up in this corporate company. We don't have a lot of that here in West Texas. So most women here pursue, a family and kids, and all of that kind of takes precedence over climbing the, so to speak, the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
So for you, what has that been like? I mean, you don't have kids right now, right, or
don't.
anything. So what's that been like for you, especially in San Angelo? Is it climbing the corporate ladder and having a position to where you get paid a lot and you have a lot of responsibility and you oversee a lot of employees?
I do, and I'm thankful in a way, but at the same time, the way I was raised up, it's not either or. It's not you have a family or have a career.
Nice.
You have to have both in a way.
Yeah.
And I say you have to because education is not an option. And so
That's
with
right.
that
I
comes
like
in,
that.
like, what are you going to be in life? If you look at all of my cousins younger, all either they're engineers or doctors or whatever, career is not something that we kind of withhold from because we have a family. Family supports family.
Nice.
So that's why we have the moms and the dads and the cousins and the sisters and the brother that will all step in and help you when you have a family. And I think there is a good support system overall. I don't have kids because I don't believe in kids before marriage. It's a cultural thing. We don't normally have kids.
Yeah.
And I believe it's the right thing to do because of all of the turmoils that you see in life.
Absolutely.
So unless you are sure that this is the person you want to be with and that's the right person for you, you build your own family and home, and you're doing it for the right reason, and you're not stuck in a relationship because now I have a kid.
That's right.
And I don't want to leave this person because what am I going to do?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Relationship is completely different back home than it is here. Whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Syria, Lebanon, all over the Middle East, people date with the intention of marriage. And here,
Really?
people date
Wait.
today.
So you're saying whenever you're dating someone, like it's automatically a pretty serious thing.
Yeah.
Like you're intending to get married, probably.
Mostly, yes.
So there's not like this whole dating culture where it's like
No, just because I'm
you're
gonna
dating
like
and
dating,
you're
so like, kind
because
of
some people will date here and they literally know they're like, I'm definitely not marrying this person. This is
we
just
don't
a
do
fun
that.
thing.
It's not like
Really?
well, it's at least verbally or
Yeah.
like culturally, it's not something common. I'm sure some people do it. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, yeah.
Right, like everybody else.
Yeah.
But the majority don't do that. The
Yeah.
majority will we date with the intention of marriage. So here's the deal. What I've seen here is people date, and then after a while, oh, I like you. Can you be my girlfriend?
Yeah.
Then, hey, like maybe a year later, I love you.
Right.
Then, hey, maybe we'll get married down the line 6
Yeah.
years from now. That doesn't happen back home. So I dated
Okay.
you because I loved you
Wait, what?
in a way. Like
what?
I started dating you because I saw somebody, like they come to me, whatever, they seen me, they like who I am, they start the admiring session or whatever.
Okay.
The
A
emotions
courtship.
kind of,
Yeah.
courtship in a way. But we don't even whatever. So when the minute they tell you, the first thing I remember is like somebody will come and tell you, well, I love you. So it starts with
You're
the I love
kidding.
Yes. It starts
No.
with, yeah, I promise. It
Wait, so
starts
they-
with the
they-
I
you
love
come up and they go,
and then
"I
when you
love
say
you."
I love you, then that's
Hi,
it.
I love you.
Not necessarily. You
Yeah.
know these people. It's not like a random street person is going to walk into you. So
but
it's like
you're
a
saying
friend
before
or
you commit to a relationship, it's already kind of
yeah, it's
that
kind of
way?
serious. Yes.
wow.
So
okay.
then when the minute you say I love you to somebody, then if you really truly love somebody, in my own opinion, and I think the major of my culture, then you have the intent of marrying them and being with them. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing that stops people from getting married back home is did you graduate college? Because both of you have to graduate so you won't hinder your
Oh,
career.
wow, yeah.
Because if you start a family and you get married, then you may have kids. And if you have kids,
Mm-hmm.
it's really you're not gonna like it's not common for people to have kids before they're graduated back home
yeah.
from college. Sorry.
Right.
It's
okay. yeah, yeah.
definitely I haven't maybe seen 1% if I've ever seen it. Within my own circle, I've seen 0% that had kids in high school.
Yeah.
Like
Wow,
legit
zero.
0%.
Whoa. Whereas
Um,
here we literally have entire schools that are dedicated to young girls who get pregnant. You know.
Correct. And then we
Wow.
have like you go to college. It's common if somebody is married. Nobody has kids before marriage. None.
Wow. That's
Everybody
crazy.
has kids
yeah.
after marriage.
That's so
Unless it's an
fascinating.
odd situation like a crime or something,
Yeah.
you know. And then like that's why so when people say I love you, then you know you're gonna get married. And it becomes a serious thing. You could be engaged for a long time and then
Yeah.
when you graduate, like my cousin who lives in like who actually she lived in South Carolina, she transfers to Canada after she got engaged because her fiance is in Canada.
Yeah.
And they waited until they both graduated. And the
Okay,
minute
yeah.
the year after her graduation, they got married in
Cool.
2018.
Yeah.
So it's a very common thing that people
Okay.
wait until whatever and then they go in their ways.
Yeah.
Because then when you build a family, you know, at least you have the education. So supporting your family becomes a big priority.
okay.
So it's not having a career to build up yourself and becoming selfish.
Right.
Is you have a career and you have to provide for your children.
Right,
Without that
okay.
degree and that position, how are you going to be able to
That's
provide to them
right.
the best
I
levels
love
of
that
education?
mentality. Honestly, personally.
One of the things that I don't understand a lot here is in a lot of families, you're 18, move out.
Yeah, talk about that. So
It's
that's the
very
thing. Listen to this.
foreign.
So it is a thing here. We had talked about this a little bit in a pre-interview. Is that it is literally a thing here that if you are still at home and you're 19, 20 years old, you are seen as like a loser. You're like, what are you still doing at home? It's a thing. Like you're pushed out of the house very early here compared to some other cultures. And I think that's weird, kind
Yeah,
of.
we
you know?
definitely don't do that because if you're pushed out of home, then you will have to pay rent, mortgage,
Right. It doesn't
all
make
of that.
sense.
You have to work hard. You may be homeless. You may become
Yeah.
without food. And then why would your family want you to go through that when they have the luxury of
It's
keeping
crazy
you at home
in a way. Yeah.
and giving you everything that you need to be
Right.
successful?
Yeah.
So I think for us, like I'll share with you, I just told you I got a promotion.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen my dad happier every time that whether it's me or my
Oh.
brother pick up the phone and say, hey, something good happened in our life. Both
Yeah.
of my parents.
That's
And
great.
yes, every parent is glad for their
Yeah.
kid's success, but it's like a personal achievement to them in a way.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because you're an
Because
extension of
it
them.
is
Yeah.
extension. And
Yeah.
I would tell you right now, I would not be where I am today have it not been for both of my parents. In
Yeah.
all fairness, they provided every
Wow.
successful opportunity for me to be comfortable in life
That's
and
cool.
not struggle in a way.
Yeah.
I think I take it back and I look at some of my friends around me that they had to pay for college and they are in school, like
Oh,
student
yeah.
debt.
I have debt. Yeah.
That's not a thing for us.
I know.
So
that's
if I ever have
unfortunate.
kids, if we've talked about it pre-interview, right? I want my kids, I will pay for their college. There is no reason for them to pay for their college.
Yeah.
That's why I have a career.
Yeah.
Me and my significant
That's
other,
great.
right?
Yeah.
They should not be getting their first car and having to struggle.
That's right.
I should be able to
Yeah.
provide that for them. I should be able to
wish it
provide
was
them
more
with the
like that,
highest level of
honestly.
education throughout their livelihood.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a little bit different.
It
Just
is.
like godliness. So
Mhm.
I come from a Christian faith
Yeah.
in a way. And a lot of the things I see here is people struggle to see, oh, what is going to have my moment to believe that God is real.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. So let me talk about that just for a second. So I recently had an experience as a Christian guy. I grew up in a family that, especially my grandmother and my father, we believed in God. And from an early age, I was saved, and my grandmother introduced me to Jesus and explained to me that he was my savior. And I grew up having a relationship with Jesus, right? But as an American growing up like that, I always had this sort of little tiny percentage of doubt. And I assumed until kind of recently that everyone, like literally everyone, just as a human with a logical mind, has a little bit of doubt, because why wouldn't you question the existence of God, right? And to me, it's like you don't have a brain if you don't at least question that a tiny bit until recently. So, in fact, I always thought these people that run around and they're evangelizing and they believe so firmly, they are so certain of the existence of God and Him in their life and that they're going to heaven. I used to think, why is it that they get to be so certain? Like, what am I missing? You know, that's not fair to me. Or like you read stories in the Bible of these heroes in the Bible where God comes to speak to them or a burning bush or whatever it is, and you're like, why does God communicate to them? Like, what makes them, like, I want that, you know, I want to be certain. So it just seemed kind of unfair to me. Like, why do these people get to know for that seems like such a gift to be doing.
So you both have big eyes.
Yeah. And so it was just until recently I guess you could call it confirmation. Something happened to me that was extraordinary. And I'm not kidding when I say I felt the presence of God. I'm not kidding. And what it did to me was so powerful, because the first thing it did to me is it scared me. I was scared because I felt immediately I'm not worthy. I am not worthy to feel this and experience this right now. Like, there's got to be way more important things. Just to feel the presence was such a gift to me, because that little bit of doubt, boom, it was gone. And I promise you it was gone. Now I am 1,000% certain for myself. I can say personally that I am certain that, you know what I mean? And it's the most incredible. And the only thing you care about when that happens to you, if you've ever experienced that, is sharing that with someone else and getting them to see what you experienced. And that's all you care about, because it's so extraordinary, because it takes that doubt away, because that doubt causes all kinds of stuff in your life, fear mostly. And I was driven by fear a lot of the time. And so, but what's interesting is we had this discussion in a pre-interview about how you grew up with
believing
certainty.
in God. Yes.
You never had that doubt. And I was like, what do you mean?
So
of course you did.
I was a very curious kid.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've asked all the questions. How was the earth created? How was the
Yeah.
sky created? Why is there like thousands of like millions of like stars? And I remember my dad was like, just go to sleep.
Yeah.
He asked too many questions.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, like, it never, when we were having that conversation, it occurred to me that I've never had that doubt. And I think because the
That's so
entire
crazy to me.
community believes. So I think there is something to hear and to some of the culture here that freedom,
Mm-hmm.
freedom of choice, freedom of whatever, which I believe in freedom.
Yeah.
But I also believe your freedom ends when other people's freedom begins.
Uh-huh.
Right?
I love that.
So I cannot force my freedom into other people.
Right.
So I am free to do whatever I want, but as long as I'm respecting everybody around me.
Yeah.
And I think that is a huge thing that we don't see today. We see a couple
That's
of
right.
signs today in our environment, our kind of the age that we're working in, which we
Mhm.
see that in a way it's the forced freedom. Because I have free will,
Yeah.
I have to do all of these things that I
That's
know
right.
as a logically, as a human being,
Uh-huh.
based on my Bible, based on everything, I should not do.
Yeah.
So why? So
Right.
sex before marriage is technically something that the Bible told us not to do,
Yeah.
but we do it
That's
because
right.
I'm free to do it.
Yeah. So that's
Right?
that's what's interesting. It's
But
like,
what's the difference between that if you think about it as a commandment perspective and saying killing somebody? We still
Mhm.
believe that's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's
So
all part of
that's
the Ten
what
Commandments.
I think is happening, and that's why I think the country is so divisive. Is I think there's such thing, and we're starting to understand this, that there is such thing as too much free
Freedom.
will, right? Because the Americanism, the thought that that was needed, the American spirit that was needed, let's say during the Revolutionary War, right, where we were fighting for those very things, right? It
Yeah.
was needed, but what's happened, I think, over the course of time is this indoctrination, sort of, and it's like, from the get-go, as we're born, we are taught, and it's indoctrinated in us that we have free will, and we are supposed to choose, and we cannot let anyone tell us otherwise, and we will do whatever it takes to hold on to as much free will as possible. And so what happens is you start getting into stuff like 8-year-olds being able to decide whether they're male or female, right? And that's the
Exactly.
extreme version of the American indoctrination that I'm talking
But
about.
an 8-year-old cannot vote. An 8-year-old cannot drink.
Right.
An 8-year-old cannot smoke.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they are free to make a
It makes
decision
no
that it will
sense.
change
Yeah.
their entire life.
Right.
Gender,
So talk
sexual
about
orientation, all of that. Think about when you were an 8-year-old. Is every decision that you made, or most of your decisions that you made, were accurate or correct?
Absolutely not. You don't know
Yeah.
anything. You barely are learning your body, like what your
Exactly.
legs do. No, but talk about this. So growing up the way you did, you're saying you grew up without that doubt.
Exactly.
And the reason you did is because there's not quite as much free will. And maybe that's not a bad thing.
And it's not necessarily the lack of free will, but when everybody around you in a community that believes,
Right.
it creates the less of doubt.
That's right.
Right? So whether my friends are Muslim, whether my family that is completely giant entire family that are all like Catholic or Orthodox or both Christian, believes in God, all of it. Nobody kind of forces on you, is God real? Yeah, we have the same sermons and we have the people who come in and we have all of it.
Yeah.
But there has never been a doubt, because how could you deny the existence of God? Look around you.
Yeah.
Think about it. Look around
So
you.
that's not a thing, is what you're saying.
Exactly. I've seen life
That's
and death.
fascinating. Yeah.
I've seen me survive. How is the miracle of me being here in front of you today?
Right.
10,000 miles across the ocean.
Uh-huh.
Not a proof that God is real.
That's right. So what I love about that is when you experience that firsthand, is when you experience something that is so beyond any reason that you could ever understand, any human logic, that something happens to where if you had 100,000 parallel universes, right? And it could happen in so many different ways. When something happens in such a way, in such an order, that it's like there is no possible way that is just random chaos.
Agreed.
It's confirmation, right?
It is 100% confirmation.
Yeah.
We'll talk about another thing. Being a woman, I'm big on women's rights, but I also believe a woman needs to be a woman.
I
And
like that.
there has to
I
be
like
a
that.
male. God created us from the limb of a man.
That's right.
Whether people want to agree to it, disagree with
Right.
it. I know that's a lot of people out there.
I'm
So there
with you
has
on
to
that.
be this equalship. While there is nothing, God have always told me to progress. I will always progress in my career and whatever. But there is also has to be it doesn't need to come with either or. It's either a woman or a man.
Yeah.
It's both together creating that family unit
I like
to
that.
foster the next generation. I think that's
See,
what we're missing.
I do
Like,
too.
there is
Like, I
no
don't think
reason
it's a
for me
bad thing to have
yeah.
traditional roles
Not
necessarily.
at all. There is no reason for me to be like acting differently, regardless of your orientations, your background, all of it. To prove that I am good at my job and good at my life and good at everything, I don't need to act like a man. I can
That's
still
right.
act like
That's
a woman,
right.
be
Yeah.
a woman, and give the best out of everything that God have given to
I
me.
love that.
He given
I
me a
love
lot
that.
of talents, and I need to use it to my advantage
Yeah.
instead of disadvantage.
That's right. Yeah. I love that. That's right. Like, you don't have to take on masculine characteristics to do all the things that you're capable of doing. And like we were talking about gender roles in the relationships, especially, like, and I understand that, I've been in relationships where a lot of the chores are equal, like I do the dishes and take out the trash, whereas my significant other does the laundry and cleans the floors. And, we split up those types of chores because it's not the 1950s.
Correct.
The woman's not sitting at home all day and I'm at work, the primary breadwinner, and come home and have my drink or whatever. It's not like that anymore. So I understand that the roles have shifted and evolved a little bit, but at the same time, I think there's something to be said about those traditional roles as far as, sexuality goes, as far as intimacy and emotional connection and all that. Like, it's okay to assume certain roles that are traditional because I think that's the way God intended. And I think those are signs of a healthy relationship.
Absolutely.
And maybe not for everyone. Like, not everyone has to fall under that dynamic in their relationship.
Absolutely.
But I enjoy that. When a woman takes on her femininity, and I think it's beautiful. Like when a woman is very feminine, and because when a woman is too masculine and the decision maker and wearing the pants, and you know, I can't personally be in a relationship like that. Like I have to be in a position, in a dominant position, and my partner has to be a little bit like a. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, but submit in a way that is biblical, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I don't think there is a wrong in any of that, in all fairness, as long as you're doing it for a reason, or you're doing it. So I believe in partners working together to create a better life. Expenses, inflation, everything nowadays makes it hard for one person to survive alone in a way.
That's right.
Right? Regardless of what you make or how you make it or whatever. And that's what I think God created us in a courtship perspective, in a companionship. God have always told us to companion each other. From the existing of Adam and Eve. Think about it. He created Eve for Adam, so they can kind of survive and create a family and move on. He didn't want them to live by themselves. He could have said, okay, Adam, go live by yourself, and I'll create Eve and put her on another thing, and there's other people.
We
and
need each other.
We do. We complete each other.
Exactly
so I think that's what it is. So I think, to me, a perfect relationship is a partnership. And a partnership, not necessarily...
I forget through the authors, but he talks about the difference between codependence, independence, and interdependence. So the goal being interdependence. Codependence being, if we were in a relationship, we depend on each other for everything, right? And it's enabling, essentially. And then there's independence, where it's like, I don't need you. I can do everything on my own. Whereas interdependence is evolving all the way through that. And it's like, hey, we don't necessarily need each other, but we make each other better. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So this is exactly what I look for in a relationship, to be honest with you. I can provide for myself everything I need at this moment in my life. So when it comes to a partner, I want a partner that give me the things that I cannot have. And those not necessarily materialistic things.
Right.
To me, it's the emotional support, the companionship, the relationship, the things that make me better. And together that we can achieve way more. There is nothing wrong in my partner making more or less or whatever. That's not the thing that I will look about the most. But I think there's a couple of things for me that are important. Do we come from a similar religious background?
Values, core values.
Core values, but religious backgrounds are important to me too.
It's a core value.
As a Christian woman, I don't want to marry somebody that is not
Christian.
Christian.
If you're not equally yoked, I feel the same way. I've been in relationships like that, and they do not work no matter how hard you try. And that's not to say that there's some people out there that probably... they're Christian and their partner's atheist. That's okay. But for me, I've experienced that if I'm not equally yoked with my partner, it just does not work out usually.
Agreed.
Do you feel the same way?
I do.
Yeah. What's another core value that's sort of a non-negotiable for you? That if you're dating someone and they don't X, Y, and Z, you can't progress any further?
If they're kind of stuck in their old ways and they do not want to progress, they're not ambitious, they don't have a future vision. To me, future vision is important.
So that's important.
If I'm in a relationship where somebody does not see a future, a family, a commitment, then I don't need to be in that relationship. I'm not in a relationship to waste time.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
So to me, it's important that there is a future, there is an end goal there, whether it's today, tomorrow, but there has to be an end goal. Because if marriage and children and all of that, I definitely want children.
Yeah.
But I told you in the beginning, I don't believe in children before marriage.
Yes.
I feel it creates a lot of issues.
What if you date a guy who's not very ambitious? He likes to kind of just sit on the couch, but you have a good job and you're the primary breadwinner. Is that okay for you? Or do you need a guy who's very ambitious and going after his own goals?
It doesn't matter if he's making the money or I'm making the money to me, but I do need him to be ambitious and get out of the couch.
Nice.
I don't want to be your mom.
Yeah,
in a way.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to be your partner. I want to be your support system.
Yeah.
But I want you to have your own ambition. It's okay to be, but let me back up and say, people are created to support each other, and I'm a big believer in this.
I will make each other better.
Yes, I will support my partner, and I will help them out, because life knocks us down every now and then, regardless of where we are and who we are.
That's exactly right.
There will be times for stay on the couch, but to me, if it lingers too long, then that's the problem.
Yeah.
So if you're on the couch because you just got fired, you had an emergency, you had a dire situation, and out of the blue something happens to you, a hardship. That happens. You're going to be knocked down a couple of days, and you're allowed to be in your emotions for a little bit. The key there for me is don't stay in your emotions. I don't want to be with somebody that is like sitting on the couch forever.
Yeah. So we've been talking for a long time. We need to kind of wrap up. But, man, this is we could talk forever. This is terrific. So this is terrific. I think it's been fascinating. What I want to do, though, is I want you to look in the camera, in your camera, and give us your personal philosophy or something that you want to say to the audience. I'll go first, so I'm going to look in my camera. Here's something that I live by. It's the slight edge. If you've ever seen, or excuse me, if you've ever read the book, The Slight Edge, there's a whole philosophy built around what's called the slight edge, which is by consistently doing small things, small positive things, or small positive acts, real small things over time, but very consistently, then that leads to big, major, transformative life changes. So it's the small things added up over time that build huge changes. Another way of putting that is the 1% philosophy, which is every day we're trying to be 1% better.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I tell this to my clients all the time, it's not like you come in and you're trying to be 20% better or 50% better or make these huge leaps and bounds. But if you can be 1% better every time you come to the gym or every day in life, then by the end of the year, 365 days, you're 365% better. So that's what to me, it comes down to is these small bite-sized chunks in life. So you go ahead.
So I have a couple of them. My first one I'll tell you is always be kind, regardless of what's going to happen in life. I will say success will happen to you. The key to it is, do you believe in yourself? Believe it will happen. Invest in your time in the things that you want to do, and it will happen eventually. Things are going to be rough. No is not something that is scary. I think in my job, I see a lot of people are afraid to ask a question or ask. I do a lot of deals and stuff. So a lot of people in my career kind of hesitate because of they're going to tell me no. And I don't believe that should be an obstacle, because they will tell me no today. They will tell me no tomorrow. But I guarantee you at one point in life, the yes will be there.
Nice.
As long as you're doing it for the right reason. Yes. As long as you're doing it for the right reason and you're doing it to succeed and for the greater others, always put that in God. God's first, your family second, everybody else comes around. Tell me who you're hanging around with. I'll tell you who you are. That's my philosophy.
Ooh, yes, I love that.
Surround yourself.
Show me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you are. That's so good.
Surround yourself with people that are developing you in success, not pulling you down.
I love that.
If you hang around a bunch of people who have no motivation, no goals, you're gonna end up being those
That's
people.
That's right. Yeah, you are who you hang around with.
Yeah, we say
you surround yourself.
Like we have a saying that says, قل لي من تعاشر أقول لك من أنت.
Say it again.
قل لي من تعاشر
أقول لك من تعاشر
أقول لك من أنت.
Say it again, the last part.
قل لي من تعاشر.
Say it again.
So it's like, tell me who you are.
Tell me who you are, yeah.
Tell me who you hang around with. I'll tell you who you are,
yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. قل لي من تعاشر أقول لك من أنت. And that's what's been my biggest philosophy. If I surround myself with people that are driving me forward, then I will move forward. There is no reason. The sky is your limit. I believe in that, and I believe as long as you're going to put God first and you are doing it with the intention of helping people around you, then there is no reason for you to fail.
I am right behind you on that. And last, I want one more thing, because I don't want people to think that we're dissing on our country or anything like that. Just talking about, I want you to tell us what you love about America, what it's done for you.
It's been my home.
Cool.
To be the thing.
You're a citizen. When did you become a citizen?
2016.
Okay. What do you love about it?
Super thankful for the U.S. and for America for everything that it provided to me, and still do. It gave me a home after being kind of leaving from one country to another, almost being kidnapped, killed, maybe with the option of being raped or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the first place that I felt safe. There is a certain thing that you can say about feeling safe in your own home. So that's what I love the most. Is I love the people that I got to meet. There is a lot of diversity that I really enjoy.
I love that too.
I love the fact that there is democracy, but I do believe I'm a little bit more of a probably right wing than left wing in a way.
That's cool. Yeah.
Because of my core values.
Yeah. I get that.
I will say that, but overall, I think there's beautiful places.
Mm-hmm.
There is amazing people.
Yeah.
That's what I love the most.
That's great. That's very cool. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Dina Ghanima. You were amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely
thank you for
amazing. Yes. Thank you guys for joining us today. Before we get out of here, I got to give our last shout out to our other sponsor, Texas Shade Window Tinting. So Texas Shade Window Tinting in San Angelo is San Angelo's premier window tinting service for your automobiles, residential windows, commercial windows, UTVs, specialty vehicles, boats, and more. As a local business owner and entrepreneur, Wade Arthur has been tinting windows in San Angelo for over 13 years. If you're looking for quality at an affordable price with a quick turnaround time, Texas Shade Window Tinting is your best bet. For a quick quote, give good old Wade a call at 325-450-6096 or check out their Facebook page for more details. Texas Shade Window Tinting. Tell them you saw it on the Matt Cutrer Report. For a discount, call Wade, the Scorpion King. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. The Matt Cutrer Report. Dina Ghanima, you were awesome. We'll see you next time. Cool.
One time for the hometown, I got love for it, that's real. 2 times for the haters, man, cause I notice how this shit feel. 3 times for my family, dog, cause this shit done paid our bills. And I get 4 times my net worth from a year ago with no deals. Did it all